All right, we're seeing the chat fill up. Thank you for being here, folks. Thanks for Tony for sending you on over. Thanks to the rest of you for joining. We're almost there. We're building up to that special moment. And that special moment has arrived. Hey guys, welcome back, guys and gals. I use guys as more of an everybody thing, but I don't want anybody to get the wrong idea. Welcome. It's a rainy, ugly day here in Cincinnati, but I hope that is a metaphor that portends the future of MAGA scum. We're going to talk about a couple different things, a bunch of stories, some of them related to what Tony talked about. Trump is the garbage man. He's been a fries man, a garbage man. Maybe it was had something to do with the fact that with his stock, his crappy stock crashing, his net worth has now gone down another $1 billion. But of course, we never know what his net worth is because he lies about. He tells you, as he said under oath, he feels wealthier certain days, so he lets you know that. And I feel like that's a really strong indicator. And I'm sure that's not the way he does everything else. I feel like maybe we should bomb Japan. Sure. But in any case, The Economist came out and endorsed Kamala Harris and said, these are a couple economic things at the same time, and said that Donald Trump is too much of a, quote, risk, unquote, which again, I've never understood about the business class, unless, and we'll get to their evil plot, Elon Musk and Donald Trump, unless you want to destroy our economy, unless that's what you plan to do, Trump's plan on tariffs and everything else will destroy us. Whereas Kamala and Joe, we had another jobs report come out today. They are crushing it. The economy is terrific. It is actually even being reported as terrific in most of those spots that you would say to yourself, they might not do that. Probably not Fox News, but in a lot of the Wall Street Journal came out today. Let me get the Wall Street Journal quote for you because it was nice. It's one, if I were Kamala, I would send something out and maybe even send Trump's way because you just know it's going to get him so upset. He's going to cry. Yes, the Wall Street Journal today. The next president inherits a remarkable economy. Hear that, guys? The next president inherits a remarkable economy. Not much else to say, right? The Economist is endorsing him, endorsing Kamala. The economy is doing great, according to the Wall Street Journal. I'm sure the Trump people didn't lose their minds over that. Kamala's gotten more GOP endorsements. People are breaking away from Donnie, and that's why he's losing his mind and getting angry, dressing up like a garbage man, almost falling over when he goes and he I'm losing my voice. Yeah, this is me. I get a little bit of a raspy voice. Who said that? Lori, especially like when I go to things like baseball games in the World Series, and when I do these all the time, and when I scream and yell a lot at my TV because we're seeing the annoying ads. For those who didn't think Ohio was still a swing state, obviously Sherrod Brown and that Bernie Moreno, the guy that ripped off all of his workers, stole their money, and also joined an adult chat site and said that he was looking for a young man who'd be fun, but is a family values guy. If you're watching, be sure to click the thumbs up and help Cliff with the algorithm. HT Lugnut, you are a genius. Seriously, like if you can, guys. Comment, subscribe. We are closing on not quite on 100,000. We're over 88,000. If you knew the pace we're on, I set a goal of 100,000 subscribers by election day. I don't know if we'll quite make it, but we're going to be in the 95,000 range. Please subscribe. Become a member. I just put up my first videos for members the other day, and there's going to be so much more coming. I'm going to add things to what I've already put in there because of my slowness around it. So please join. Everybody who joins helps me. Helps me to continue to do this kind of thing. Carly, that's real good. 88K. Wow, thank you. I know. I'm shocked kind of at how quickly the last couple months has really, really grown. And yes, Carl Jacobson, the economist, generally leans right. I should have given that that context. They are, when you say Tory, yes, they're a Tory in the British sense and also a Tory conservative in the American sense, of an old center-right type newspaper that believes they're not crazy fascists. They believe that that the economy, not the invisible hand necessarily, but like a barely visible hand, a little bit of regulation and tax, but not much. And they realize the risk Donald Trump's crazy tariff plan and is just instability, being unhinged, being crazy. That scares other countries. They don't want to invest in your country when a crazy person runs it. There's an actual plan. I'm not kidding you. Oh, hey, Tony's here. We'll add him to the stage.
Yo.
There's an actual, hey, Tony.
Hey.
You've probably seen this. There is an actual plan by Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, Donald Trump. You'll keep seeing Elon Musk saying he retweets it, he mentions it. He won't show up in court like he was supposed to today. He was required to be in court on his little pencil.
Yeah, well, I didn't see what happened with that yet. I was just trying to check some of the stuff that was going.
I would like them to put a warrant out for his arrest.
I'd say the judge should remand him.
Yes, I would say so. But they've admitted it. They've said, well, there's going to be some interim pain. I'll say quickly, I'm being asked by Dawn, do you think issue 1 is going to pass? It is going to pass here in Ohio. I'm almost sure of it. We will ungerrymander districts and be closer to being a swing state again. But their plan, they want to trash our economy. They don't care. I mean, like that jackass fat guy with the hat on yelling at those black women at the polling place, they couldn't give two shits about him. He's just too stupid to realize it. But he's the type of person, probably, I'm stereotyping, maybe he's secretly, really wealthy and just doesn't believe that you should get an elliptical machine in your home. I don't know. Maybe it couldn't fit into the mansion. But I'm guessing he's like a regular Trumper, and they're going to screw them all. Because their plan is to have a tech bro oligarchic elite run things here because they know better than the rest of us. They're smarter. And part of that is they need to destroy before they recreate, their little disruption thing that they like to talk about. So they don't think you can really remake our economy right now because there's too many of these regulations and there, too much of that kind of thing. They want to blow the whole thing up and start over with their capitalist paradise because Peter Thiel once said capitalism and democracy do not go together. So he chooses capitalism. Even though that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Well, obviously, regulated capitalism and democracy, as you see all over Europe, Japan, South Korea, Argentina, Canada, all sorts of places, works quite well when done. Go ahead.
Can I give you a little bit of a, because I think Elon Musk is actually telling the truth here about the economy temporarily crashing, and one of the reasons why is because of Trump's
I agree
mass deportation plans. That's exactly that. And again, if you need like some sort of contemporary example of this, of how it hurts the economy, you just go back to the pandemic. Now, the pandemic was a different situation than what mass deportation was, but when you have a shrinking of labor, you have a shrinking of the economy. And it doesn't matter what number you take from Trump or Project 2025 or Agenda 47, whichever number you want to take, whether it's Trump's number at 5 million, 10 million, 15, he's going to work up to 100. But even if you take like the number 12 million, because I think that's about the number that a lot of credible organizations have said, that's probably about 12 million people is the undocumented population. And it doesn't mean brown people. Undocumented means they're here and they're not supposed to be
anybody who is here who doesn't have, but
like Elon Musk, like Elon Musk when he overstayed his student visa, Melania Trump when she overstayed her work visa, those would be undocumented
two
people.
best things Kamala could do is kick those two out of the country if she could, because they're here. They arrived here illegally, and it's quite clear now, and a bunch of other Trump sycophants and acolytes are the same. I think it's important that the point you're making. You know why? Because it's them admitting that having immigrants here is very good for our economy. So like, well, we're gonna get rid of them, and then
like saying that immigration's important without saying that it's important. You know what I mean?
Exactly. So that's one part of it, but also the other part of it is whether this is a pipe dream of a group of crazy people or not doesn't really matter, because the damage they can do. They are invested. Donnie Senior and Junior have their own little Bitcoin scam, and all these guys are invested in Bitcoin. They want that to become the reserve currency. They've already tried to push it on. Who's the guy? Is the one in El Salvador who's like their right-wing patron saint they love because he came into office and just started throwing everybody into prison without actually the inconvenience of holding trials. Right. So they and he's talked about doing it down there. They want the United States to do it, so they stand to make gazillions, and they don't want the U.S. dollar to be the reserve currency. Now, to get that to happen, you need to make the dollar unstable. So one, you just put Trump in office saying lots of unstable, stupid shit, and inevitably people get scared and are not or don't want to own dollars. But two is if the full faith and credit of the United States is questioned, I don't know if we have January 6th like events, that kind of thing going on, go to wars, get into huge debt because we borrow for all the dumb things they do, add in immigration. Again, they want to remake the United States in their crazy ass tech bro image. Okay, they don't. Our current democratic republic is to be eliminated. This is what they won't say in straight out language, and so that's why when you see another incredible jobs report and the economists supporting them, and that group Forbes had a list of all these huge CEOs who came out and endorsed Kamala and Joe Biden because they understand. Listen, there are two things that stability. I mean, there's many things, but two things off the top of my head that stability is incredibly important for. When you're talking about governing duties, the economy and foreign policy. The wrong thing said at the wrong time can literally lead to an economic blow up or a physical blow up. And Trump's perfect for them that way because JD Vance, the goal is to install him. So that is part of what's going on today. Tony already talked about Trump, the garbage man.
The king of trash, and
I've already looked at so many of these sort of images of him. I mean, they're all so ridiculous that his own people must hate him to let him do this stuff. There's one point where people call it Trump Force One or whatever, Garbage Force One or whatever. His garbage truck.
That's what I put on my thumbnail today was Garbage Force One.
It was fucking driving around in circles.
Well, of course it was.
Driving around in circles.
It's probably that garbage truck has probably never actually seen a can of garbage before. It's probably brand new.
No, of course not.
Yeah,
of course not. So, hold on.
I'm trying to look here to see if I can find some updates on if they're going to actually give a contempt charge if he doesn't show up and what the word is. I'm not sure what time this hearing was supposed to kick off today. I know that
this morning. Originally, I think it was at 9 a.m. I had seen.
Eastern time, you're saying?
Yes, because it was in Pennsylvania.
Okay, so here's a report here. Elon Musk did not show up in Philly court. His lawyers got a delay by moving the case to federal court. Philly DA called this cowardly and irresponsible Musk team says his $1 million giveaway is legal and DA's suit is a public stunt. And again, this is all delay tactics. And the reason why it's delay tactics is because Elon Musk is delaying prosecutors investigating and taking evidence to a grand jury to indict him.
Yep.
That's all he's doing is just playing the old Trump playbook because Putin's telling him to. Because that's what this is.
Exactly,
that's what this is.
And he controls all of them. Thiel's invested there. Elon Musk, he owns all of them. So, I mean, that's the thing here is I wish a little more, look, I'm hesitant to criticize because I think the people on Kamala's side have done a brilliant job overall. I do think they should have referred to him more often as a convict and as owned by Putin. I do think that should have been more of a part of their regular messaging, because I think reminding people you're voting for a criminal, makes it harder because that's not a normal thing to do. But again, they've done so much so well, and they have brought that up, and surrogates have. So again, but here's an important thing. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say one other thing about the Elon Musk Pennsylvania thing that has come out over the last 24, 48 hours is, especially with this case pending or these hearings pending, is that the get out to vote effort for Trump that America PAC was apparently paying for, they were actually, which is kind of funny with the symbolism of the Patriot Front, they were renting like U-Haul trucks, I guess, and they were hauling around these get out the vote people in U-Haul trucks, but they weren't telling them what they were actually doing, what kind of electioneering they were doing. And apparently, now I don't know what truth this is, so you got to track it down. But they're saying the door knockers were flown to Michigan, and they're driving it back from Pennsylvania to back of a U-Haul truck, and they were told that if they don't make their quota, that they'd have to pay their own hotel bills. I mean,
again, these things are illegal. All right.
And you've worked on campaigns.
First of all, it's kidnapping at some point where you've got people in the car. I mean,
it's trafficking.
It's
human trafficking.
He's trafficking. It's somewhere. I think Josh Marshall, how did he put it? Somewhere. Who could have guessed that something run by Elon Musk, a turn out the vote, get out the vote operation, would turn to something between human trafficking and an episode of Breaking Bad, and that's about right. I mean,
so how is this legal? Because you've worked on campaigns and you know what you can and cannot do, or what is typical. So tell me, because I'm not really.
Somebody has it here. I can't read that. Is that Lightfoot SP? Extortion. That would be a charge I would think absolutely would stick here. But the point I was trying to make before, Tony, was like, the thing is, when you're in this situation, it's kind of like we've talked about with Trump, some people not knowing certain things because we've never dealt with them before.
Right.
I mean, is it legal? It can't be legal because just federal employment law. It's not legal to promise to bring people somewhere under false promises. Again, that is trafficking. That is I think he threatened not to pay them. That's also illegal. When they said they were going to come and signed whatever contract or did whatever, even if you just made an oral contract with them, you were going to pay them X number of dollars for them to come and do this. They did their part. There's something called consideration, which people may understand in contracts. They've done their part. You got to do yours. But on top of that, right, he's extorting them, he's threatening them. I think depending on what he's saying to them, there could be terroristic threats in there. There could be a whole boatload of charges, I would guess. And again, this is the person we're talking about, the guy that sexually harassed, so the women on, what was it? One of the, I guess you call them flight attendants on his SpaceX. One of his few rockets that didn't blow up. I guess maybe that's what they threatened him with. They're like, if you don't go out and get this many, we'll either put you inside one of our rockets or inside one of our Tesla trucks, and you have a 50-50 chance it explodes.
Right. So let me ask you, because, there's a lot of questions of illegality around this. What is it about the $1 million sweepstakes that makes people think that the people that received the $1 million sweepstakes, because I actually don't think that Elon's going to pay him, but they think they're going to get the $1 million. But if they do receive the $1 million, I mean, obviously that if that is declared that is illegal, I'm guessing the federal government will go in and do a seizure under the forfeiture laws. I mean, and is there criminality? Because I think the way the law sounds, not only is it illegal to buy a vote, but it is illegal to take a payment to vote.
Yeah, it is. And to take a payment, it is illegal to pay someone to register to vote or to take a payment to register to vote. Even not voting.
So what you're saying is not only to cast a ballot, right? To go in the polling place and someone says, "Hey, I'll give you $100 if you go vote for Harris," and they're like, "Okay, I'll take the $100," and they go and they vote for Harris, and then someone finds out about this conversation. Maybe it was a texting conversation, right? That's illegal. But it would also be illegal. What you're saying is if there was a Democratic campaign standing outside of a grocery store at a table that says "register to vote," and someone walks up and says, "Hey, are you going to vote for Harris Walls?" They say, "Yeah," and say, "Okay, I'll give you $100 if you register to vote." And like, "Okay, I'll take $100 if I register to vote." So you're saying both those things are illegal.
My understanding from multiple folks and reading multiple, because again, not a lawyer, is that yes, that's very much illegal. And that's part of all of this too, is that when he was paying people to register other people, I think by extension, you're paying for register, you're
have you ever done registration drives?
No, that's different than registration. He was paying them to convince their friends to register. So it wasn't a registration drive where I'm going out with something and asking everybody on the street or everybody has to ask. It's like they're paying me to come and say, "Hey, Tony, I'll give you $100 if you register." Again, because I'm just doing the buying then, kind of. So I mean, I don't know. It's
well, I mean,
here's what we've learned.
Well, I was going to say the first, and the reason why I think the details are so important is because they're so obvious. Because they're advertising them. This isn't like this some sort of secret thing that's happening. He's doing this right out in the open on Twitter. What does this remind you of?
What does it remind you of? As you said before, we know he's not going to end up paying them, right? We know he doesn't end up paying his workers and treats them terribly. We know that that he breaks the law quite publicly. We know that he makes grand narcissistic proclamations about what he's going to do, about we're going to go to the moon, and circle all around it 400 times, and we're going to learn about alien life there or whatever, and never lives up to the timetable he promises, the products he promises. Does any of this remind you of somebody else?
Yeah, it does.
It does. He's Donald Trump. I think what most people don't get is he's a Donald Trump smart enough to keep, or not smart enough, maybe because he was too shy and because of his negative EQ, kept his mouth shut for the first 40-something years of his life while he was stealing people's ideas and sucking up government contracts. And the press was writing all these, pieces about him. That's the only difference. Is Trump was yeah.
I was going to say, do you think that maybe Vladimir Putin has you know what? I think Trump is done, so now he's turning to his new Trump, and
I wouldn't be surprised at all.
He didn't realize that his new Trump is dumber than his old Trump, right? You know what I mean? You trade it in, you're like, this thing's a piece of shit.
Well, they're all doing it. I mean, Putin's obviously the biggest of all. One of your shows I was listening to the other day, you brought up how Putin is one of the wealthiest. He probably is the wealthiest person in the world because he stole, when they privatized, he stole all of these state resources, made sure that he had secret, shell accounts that had massive investments in them, just took all the money that was on hand. I'm talking about natural gas, oil, sheet metal, whatever it is, huge production companies. He could be worth $1 trillion for all we know.
Right. He doesn't own it personally, but he controls all that money.
Correct. So he's the biggest, but Thiel, Musk, Sachs, these guys, they're just they're waiting. Every time Donald Trump's heartbeat skips a beat, they probably start clapping. They're trying to not start.
So are you saying
they want JD Vance? JD Vance is their guy. They don't want Trump. Trump is their vehicle to get JD Vance there. Absolutely. JD Vance will be pliable. And the reason why
is because JD Vance isn't as much of a clown?
Because JD Vance is as charismatic as a hole in a sofa. Essentially,
hey, JD finds a lot of excitement about holes in sofas. I hear
so, he does. The most of the rest of us don't. He's basically has the Riz, if you will, of a glory hole in a sofa cushion. Okay,
shit.
So I mean, seriously. So
JD
Trump's
Vance,
their vehicle.
JD Vance is the reason why you don't sit on a leather sofa with the screwdriver in your pocket, because later on that day you might come in and JD's, banging on the hole that the screwdriver made. Is what you're saying?
Oh, he absolutely.
Oh, okay. I just want to make sure. I just want to make sure we're clear.
So to move on and to get back to one of my favorite nicknames, I'll steal from you. To get back to Grandpa Concentration Camp.
Yeah.
The thing with Trump is that they're looking at all these reports too, and saying he's losing it. He's going to be gone. We just need to get him in there, and this is why we need to have DHS involved and whatever. Because it bothers me the access that Elon Musk has to defense secrets to other things, and what I think he'd be willing to do to install Trump. Same thing with
Can I ask you this too? Because I've wondered this too. Because we don't there's not like a running list of people who have security clearances, what their security clearances are. Do you think that the reason why Elon's kind of acting desperate is maybe they've started to take away part of his security clearance? We just don't know that yet.
It's possible. I mean, look, if the people are anywhere close to doing their goddamn jobs at DHS, they wouldn't let him anywhere near any technology that could have anything to do with an election, right? I mean, he's made clear, he's already made, assassination jokes about Kamala Harris. I mean, he's proven he's not stable. He's proven he's a pretty shitty businessman at this point now that he's Twitter, great job. I don't know how he hasn't been booted out, and maybe they can't kill him right now. They just have to wait till they run out. I don't know all the details, but it's insane to me that a person like that, who's that unstable and has said the things he said and made the preferences clear that he's made, and made up the conspiracies made up, has that kind of access. And Thiel has, I don't know if he has as much on defense contracts, but has a lot of government access too. These are just literally James Bond villains, as I saw somebody saying. They're literally high, and they're just higher end because the amount of money they have, not because the amount of class they have. They're just higher end gangsters, is what they are. And so
they're all Putin's little army. I mean, that's what I see. Is that Putin? I'm not sure what blackmail Putin has on each individual one. It might be a little different on each one. I actually think that seeing some of the mannerisms of Trump and Elon, how they interact, and Trump calling Elon a genius, we have to protect our geniuses. It really makes me think that Putin actually has the Epstein client list. I think that's that's the reality that we're facing.
I think that client list could be part of it. Who knows? Maybe he has the P. Diddy client list. I mean, there's so many different ways out there that both of these men have been accused of sexual assault, and I think he was assault, or he may have just been harassment with Elon Musk. They both have obviously, the way they've treated other people around them, the things that they say publicly where they admit crimes, one can only imagine what they say privately. So, I mean, there's no reason to believe that there's numerous files that Putin couldn't have from different, places. I mean, you go to any of those old Eastern Bloc countries, it may be different now, but certainly at least right after the wall fell and all of that. I mean, always remember that Donald Trump came back from Moscow, as Greg Olear points out, and right away wrote an article for the New York Times attacking Reagan and saying that we should be taking a more conciliatory stance towards Russia. Just always remember that.
Do you think that's because there was a camera in the hotel room that he stayed in? Because that's the other thing that a lot of people discount, that some of these people who have went to Russia, Putin and others make sure that they put them in precarious positions to where they,
of course,
they give them a reason. And I would imagine, the easiest form of blackmail that Putin could lay upon someone, especially a politician or a billionaire or an oligarch in our country, is that that person would to have and videotaped tapes of them with underage people.
Right.
And
well, remember also that when Trump went there, this is important to say, he absolutely could have videotaped him with underage women, no doubt. But let's remember, when Trump went there, I think to Russia, he'd already been bankrupt once, was in the process of going bankrupt.
Well, he was a Russian asset before he went there. Is what I mean.
Well, yes, but my point to you is, when you in spycraft, right? I can't think if there's an acronym for it. You always talk about the 4 ways you can turn somebody. Normally, somebody has at least 1 or 2 of them, and you turn them. Trump has all 4, as usual, just like he has all 7 deadly sins. He has all that. You know, they either use what they call honey traps, which are women. You got Trump there. They use money to pay them off. You got Trump there. They use blackmail, compromise. You got Trump there. And they use ego, play to somebody's ego. You got Trump there. So they could have Trump on any number of things. I don't think you have to think it's one or two things. I think it's a lot.
Well, I mean, well, and that's I guess where I go back to, like, you know, a lot of people are like, oh, the P tape, and I'm you know, maybe the Putin has the P tape, but it's probably, if he has a P tape, he probably has tapes much worse than a P tape. But I think that through Putin's influence and power, he has been able to procure the Jeffrey Epstein client list. It's one of the reasons why he's been able to
absolutely believe that could be it. I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying there's some other pretty bad lists out there. You know what I mean? And he has access to a lot of information and can hack into a lot of information. So,
well, and the other thing too is, why is he talking on the phone, violating the Logan Act with former President Donald Trump and Elon Musk all at the same time, like in the same time period?
I can't.
Right,
it's like
and then
dots, I can't.
Right.
I can't put it all together.
It's so obvious. Like, it's so. And then the reporter asked the king of trash while he's sitting in Garbage Force One about this, and literally Trump's response to, "Are you worried that Elon's talked to Putin?" is, no, he's a genius and we need to protect our geniuses. Like, he's saying, yes, I know he's talked to Putin. And Putin has told me that he's talked to Putin, and we're all coordinating together. Like, that's how it feels.
Oops.
You know.
Hold on. I'm not that I don't like you, John Doe, but thank you to Maggie Pie. I appreciate the.
I like her comment too. Trump is possibly the easiest person to trap.
Yep. I mean,
you know, that's gotta be true. Clear over the last week when we're like, John Kelly has the Hitler thing drop. The media finally picks up on the idea that he's a fascist, right? They finally start saying it, and he can't help himself but go out on stage and say, "I'm not Hitler. I'm not a Nazi. I'm the opposite of a Nazi." And then we call him garbage, and he pretends to be a garbage man. Like, he's so easy to bait.
He's such an idiot. Remember, first of all, in politics, one of the rules is if you're explaining, you're losing. And I would add a corollary to that, which is if you're saying you're not Hitler, you're Hitler. If you've gotten to a point where if you have to look at a group of people and say, "I'm not Hitler," if it's gotten that far, you're fucking Hitler. Okay?
Well, you know what?
Can you imagine your life, Tony, ever having to do that? Like, look, I'm not really.
Right. Trust me when I say this. I know everyone believing it, and a lot of people hear what I say and think I'm Hitler because of what I say, but I'm not. What I want to know is before I go, because it's Halloween. Yeah. So happy Halloween, everybody. Is yesterday on Halloween Eve, Donald Trump dressed up as a garbage man as his costume. I just wonder is he going to eventually cosplay Hitler? Is he going to wear the Hitler costume? Maybe put on the.
I don't understand why he didn't wear that. He admired him,
right,
and thought that he did some good things. He could have performed whatever those good things were,
right,
while dressing up like Hitler. Right. All I know is I can tell all of you right now, who, again, I'm going to remind you, please subscribe to the channel, where we want to hit 100,000 before by Year's Day. We'll be well past by Election Day on January 5th when we vote. Sorry, that was a Trump. But please also become members. We'll have great stuff for you there. Okay, so I've done that. I think I do. I think that what was somebody saying? It's like a Tom Clancy book. What do we got here? I once read a Tom Clancy book where a national security advisor is seduced by a Russian femme fatale, and he's blackmailed into being a Russian spy. Yeah, did anybody here watch The Americans, which kind of predicted our current situation? I mean, The Americans, these fake, families, and there was one that actually came here and did this. That's what it was based upon. That they came here and they immigrated here. They pretended to be a married family, and like the whole family, including the kids, are spies. The Russians tried everything, man. So important to know. But what you said is a good transition, and I'll maybe get your comment on this last thing, and then you can go off and Halloween your ass off and eat all the candy you want. And they're finally covering.
We're gonna carve some jack-o'-lanterns is what we're gonna do tonight.
Ooh,
so.
Did you see that one we have at our site, which is the one of Trump in prison. So we carved somebody did that, and it wasn't me, and I couldn't find who it was, or I would have given credit. That was very, very nicely done. Was it? I love that series. Carrie Russell was awesome by Emma. Yeah, that The Americans is one of my favorite shows ever. So I would absolutely recommend it. It was incredible. But in addition to the the Hitler admiring and the things that, oh my God, newspapers suddenly started not perfectly, but to cover and not like to completely sane wash. Yesterday, the Las Vegas, was it Sun? This is a swing state, folks. I mean, we're talking about in the state of Nevada. Swing state newspaper slams Trump, who is, quote, crippled cognitively with, quote, clear signs of mental illness. The Las Vegas Sun.
They're just coming to that conclusion now. It's 2024 for crying out loud. Fuck.
I mean, yes, but you know what? Better late, and it's not too late.
So.
That's the thing, is a lot of people are still voting in Nevada, and that is a key swing state. Right. So yes, would I rather?
I hear Trump's going to New Mexico, which I would encourage him to go to New Mexico as well.
Yeah, he's going to emigrate there.
I guess. I don't know. I don't know what it's. Before I go, so I want to make one last comment on that, the New Mexico thing, because a lot of people ask me in real life and like through DMs are like, why is he doing this? Well, because it doesn't benefit him. He's not going to win New Mexico. The reason why he's doing it, and Cliff probably agree with me on this, is because Kamala Harris isn't going to go to New Mexico. She's probably not going to do a rally in New Mexico. It doesn't make sense for her to do a rally in Mexico. And the reason why is because we have to win this race. So she has to win in Michigan. She really has to win in Pennsylvania, North Carolina. She's got to shore up that blue wall with Wisconsin and Minnesota, and maybe even Cliff's home state of Ohio there. But the thing is that if she goes to New Mexico, that sucks up a lot of funds for her to use and a lot of time for her to use in these last few days to campaign in those places to really move the needle just a bit here, just a bit there. But Donald Trump's going to New Mexico because he knows that Kamala Harris is not going to New Mexico. So when the results drop for New Mexico, he could say, she didn't win New Mexico. She didn't go. I'm the one who went to New Mexico. I went, so I win. I went to the state. I win New Mexico. That's what he's doing. He's doing this thing where he's doing this parlor trick, right? You remember the ball in the cup thing? He's balling and cupping his supporters, right? And making
I'm sure he balls and cups his supporters all the time.
but I mean that's the parlor trick that he's pulling, not on us, not on people who have enough brain cells to rub together to manufacture a logical thought. He is pulling this parlor trick on his supporters. That is very important for people to understand.
It's just like we're going to compete, New York's a swing state, and that's why we're going there. And of course, in that case, it was just an excuse to be able to recreate a Nazi rally for his base, right? I mean, not because New Mexico has not been a swing state since maybe 2000. I haven't seen polls there recently, but I'm sure. Yeah, I think it's if not in double digits, close to that.
Donald Trump is not going to win New Mexico.
No, of course he's not. I'm just saying it's not even close.
Right.
And on top of all that, I'm going to guess the Puerto Rico comment did not help. Again, I've never seen anything saturate media with and do it by starting off on largely on Instagram and places like that of these Puerto Rican stars. Who was it the other day? The one that had endorsed Trump and now
Nicky Jam, I think is the name.
Yeah, Nicky Jam. He pulled back his endorsement.
He didn't just pull back his endorsement. He basically told Trump to go fuck himself.
There you go.
I mean, I'm sorry. He wasn't just like, hey, I don't want to endorse him. He was like, nope, it's done.
I mean, honestly, the anecdotal stuff I'm hearing from friends in that community, in different places is wildfire. There are people that are now pissed, a few of them, sadly, and we do tell people to vote early, so we can't, but who went and voted and I think wanted to go change their vote, but because they voted for Trump. But there are many more, many more who either hadn't decided yet, who were saying, I'm not going to vote for either of them, or we're going to vote for Trump and have now switched over to Kamala. It is endemic. And these folks have seen the Nicky Jam thing was great because as I put it on Twitter, if you understand messaging, press, all that, I'm like, they tried to change the story with the whole Biden said you're all garbage. It's like, no, Biden just said that dumb fuck Hinchcliffe is garbage. But they tried that because they thought, that we're still in the old environment where they can control everything. Yet they can't control Ricky Martin's fucking Instagram feed or J-Lo. Sorry, guys.
Right.
But they tried all of that, and then oops, your message got stepped on, because literally the next day or less, Nikki Jam comes out and pulls back his endorsement, insults Trump, and now you have a whole nother round. Maggie Pie, $20 again. Is Trump Chester, Cheetahs, and Mussolini's child? You got some good ones. I think it's a possibility. We haven't checked his DNA, and quite frankly, I'm not going to. But I do think it's possible. We also have a new member, James Griffin Sr. Thank you so much. So, I mean, I honestly think the Puerto Rican attack, the way that has rocketed through mainstream media, Spanish-speaking media, social media, has become the proverbial nail in the coffin that I think Pennsylvania was already a done deal. Put it further away. I think, if anything, it may have helped put Georgia into our column. And I think I'm interested to see what happens in Florida now, folks, because already I was thinking it was going to be really close there. Very interested. There's this other group of people that live in Florida too called Haitians. As Trump keeps saying, he doesn't believe they're really legal, that they're illegal, and he's going to throw them out anyhow. Got to believe that's going to make them really like him too.
What was the margin in Florida in 2020?
It was about 3 points.
3 points.
Yeah, it was about 3 points.
How many votes? Because I think there's the estimated population of Puerto Ricans in Florida. It's the highest in Florida. I think it's like 1 million.
It's 1 million
over me. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I don't know what's the Haitian. But population?
I mean, the margin is such that if these groups were to come out in force, right, instead of like a usual 65-35 Democratic, were to suddenly go 85 or 90% Democratic, you'd feel the difference, and it could change the outcome. Haitians, I think
Haitians are about just over 500,000. So it would seem,
and they're more Democratic though. Haitians are more Democratic to start with. Doesn't mean there isn't a good 10 to 20% that are Republicans. So you could see some changes where we can make gains from that. Just not as big as the Puerto Rican.
You'll love this. Okay, so Florida. Before I go, because I gotta go get into a school pickup line here. But in Florida, Florida is the state that has the highest Puerto Rican population in our country. Bless Puerto Rico. And it also is the state with the highest Haitian population. So in the last several months of the campaign, he just basically told his home state to go fuck themselves. It's crazy.
And look at what Craig Davis just, thank you, Craig, for pointing out, all the retired veterans living down there. They're going to be huge fans. And normally they're largely Republican. I absolutely am convinced with what a bunch of the generals have said and just things that Trump has said about veterans in general. You're going to see that shrink by a lot. So I think Florida has to be in play.
To give you the number there, it appears it's about 1.4 million retired veterans in Florida. So just to, and again, these are just quick numbers that I'm looking up. So I don't know how accurate that. I don't know how many are registered voters or can vote. But I don't know. 1.4 million in veterans. 1.5 million between Haitians and Puerto Ricans. I would say we could probably say at least 25% of those are probably registered voters. At least we could probably say that he's been insulting the people who may cast a vote against him in Florida.
I think he could make a difference in the end. Rick Scott here. Aaron Wells, that's not a fair question to ask. Between Rick Scott and Ted Cruz, which one would you like to see lose more? It's sort of like, what would I like to get rid of more, Donald Trump or, Ebola? You know what I mean? I would have to, if I could eliminate Ebola from the earth or eliminate Donald Trump from the United States, at least, put him in prison, what would I want more? I'm not sure in that one. That's a close one. So I don't think it's fair. Those two, and I put Josh Hawley up there as the three dickless horsemen of the apocalypse. And Hawley in Tony's state is such a piece of trash too that Kuntz hoping for something there.
What's your prediction? Do you think if out of those three, which is Scott, Cancun Cruz, and Josh Hawley, which one do you think is more likely to lose their seat?
Well, I said before, just because of the turnout had been so crazy, and because of what I was seeing, disproportionate women voting, and I thought, Colin Allred is such a good candidate too, and Ted Cruz is an even louder asshole than Rick Scott, not by a lot. That I thought that was the more likely win for us. But this Puerto Rican situation with Puerto Ricans, I mean, they may just come out and vote against the entire damn party. I would have absolutely before said that I would have thought that the best pickup was Texas. I think they're tied now.
So,
I
but
think
you,
both
so
of those
you, so
states.
you think? Do you think the insults to Puerto Ricans really affects Rick Scott, which is kind of on par for what Rick Scott did in the last 48 hours? I don't know if you saw this. Rick Scott took like $1.5 million. He loaned himself $1.5 million.
Yeah, which tells you he's desperate. Oh, I see we have Alex Lawson here. We're going to let him in a second. But I think he's desperate. He put 10 million in first, now another $1.5 million. You don't keep doing that. And
well, especially in the last throws, those last days of the election, if you're pretty certain.
Correct. He's seeing close. And Alex, I bet, has some polls, some things to share with us. Alex knows some insider kind of stuff. But I would say to you, as the head of Social Security works, there's a few people on Social Security down in Florida.
Just a couple, yeah.
So that might be something
too. But I'm sure Alex will have that number. I don't need to look at it.
But I guess what I'm saying overall is Rick Scott, I don't think, will be hurt in the same manner as Trump, but I do think there, so it won't be as many Puerto Ricans. There will be some that maybe split tickets or, whatever. But I do think, yes, he'll be somewhat hurt because some will just be so disgusted they'll vote against the entire Republican Party. And Rick Scott already was in trouble, as you just pointed out, because he keeps dumping money in. I think, and I'm just going to be bold and say it, I think we win those two races. And remember, Rick Scott's never, the last race he ran when he won his seat, he won by something like 10,000 votes. He's never won a race by more than 1.3%. And he's won two races by 0.3% or less. So I'm going to go with the win.
I'll say that if you are correct and they win those two races, especially if the race in your home state of Ohio turns out well, and anything like the race in Texas or Florida, if the outcome of what you're saying is true, that they may be able to pick those races off. It's possible Josh Hawley could be picked off in Missouri. That pretty much gives us a really good opportunity to say that the Senate is Democratic. But I don't know if all that stuff will come to fruition.
I will say I hope very much Kunz can do it. I think if we have an election that we're hoping for, where we pull that 7-point average Dobbs overperformance among the polls. We know the polls have been bullshitted up by the Trafalgars and Rasmussens and other mucusy right-wing organizations that have dumped their garbage, their islands of garbage, if you will, into the polling stream. And then they get the turnout the vote operation where Elon Musk is like jumping in the air and looking at an app upside down and like, hey, we're going to get someone to turn out. And we have like the most comprehensive turnout effort, largest in the history of presidential politics. I'm not going to say I can't make a prediction that Kunz will win. I hope he'll win. I think your state, it may be that Hawley holds on by a couple of points and gets a scare. But
and there's a lot more factors that Lucas made decisions on as the reason why Hawley, even if he does win, it would be by a narrow margin. But I'll let you go to the expert because he's probably got a lot more numbers than me, and he probably curses less than me too. So that'll get you.
Alex is a pretty fucking good cursor.
Oh, good. Well, good.
Well, I think I sent him a DM to ask him to share something about the Nazis for me, and he just replied with "fucking fascists" and then put it up. So
okay,
you guys, I'll have to introduce you to. I'm surprised you haven't come across each other.
I got to go get in a school line, so I'm going to head out. Everyone have fun and subscribe to Cliff's channel, and always come to my show every single weekday, Monday through Friday. We'll talk to you guys soon.
He's got a good show over there.
Of course it is. Duh.
All right. Take care. All right. I'm not going to take any time to say any other stuff. I want my old friend, not old as in old, because
middle-aged,
spry and young. We are middle-aged, aren't we? But I've known this guy. We've worked in politics together in various ways, on and off, for 20 years, probably. That scares me. How are you, Alex?
Yeah, good. I actually didn't know that this was a high profanity show, so I'm much better now knowing that I don't have to mind my P's and Q's as much, and we can just talk honestly about what's happening.
Well, let's do that. I mean, they could demonetize me, might upset me a bit, but you know what? These shows have to be honest. So don't go out of your way.
I don't go out of my way.
You've already heard me. When cursing needs to be done, cursing needs to be done. I mean, the Republicans are fucking fascists, and if I were to just call them fascists, I don't believe it would have the oomph of that. But I want you, first of all, you run and you have successfully and have been one of the most. I mean, I'm giving my opinion. I'm sure there's statistics that show this too. But you, in terms of understanding way ahead of time, I like to think that I was there with you about what Democrats need to do in terms of mock them back, be more aggressive. Every opportunity there's a mic in front of your face, don't say, oh, shame on them. No, respond with your message. Say, the reason that Josh Hawley said that about me is clearly he's uncomfortable with his own manhood, which is why he wrote a book about it, and needs to go talk to Tucker Carlson about his junk. I mean, I'm being facetious and silly, but the point is to always be messaging, to always be attacking, to always be defending yourself when they do, to control the narrative, to hit the mainstream media when they're weak, which is most of the time, and most of the mainstream media. These are things that Alex and I, when we worked together on gun issues a decade and a half ago we brought to the organization we were working with, and Alex has brought it that Social Security works. They were the ones who I will always give Alex credit for this. When people are like, should we cut Social Security or keep it the same? Here's where I have to curse again. Alex is like, fuck that. We're going to argue to increase it is what we're going to do. We're not going to argue between keeping it the same and cutting it, and got Elizabeth Warren to go out and make that argument among others. And it was amazing. And it was sort of like, why are we in this defensive crouch? I always call it those that are maybe it may even be right in the middle of Gen X. It may even be the top of Gen X on through the boomers. But if you see some of the extras like Hakeem Jeffries, some of these other ones, they're not scared of Republicans. They know how to talk about them and how to fight back. So I feel like from us on down, and we needed that change in leadership where it went to that next generation of people that are no longer think that, oh my God, Reagan's so popular and their issues are so popular and he's so charismatic. How can we fight back? We know we're right. We know they're wrong. We know they're full of crap. We know they're fascists. We know they're stupid. We know we can beat them. And we're going to tell people that, right? So thank you for the Crystal Carter for the. Go ahead.
Not all of them are stupid.
No, that's true.
Many of them are some of the best politicians and smartest people that you'll ever meet, who play idiots on TV, right? Like
John Kennedy is the most. I mean, that fake Southern accent, that the one from Louisiana, who shouldn't even be allowed to use that name, who apparently goes into a private room and says, now, would you like to have a crisp dinner with me, or should we go out for some drinks? He walks outside and sits in committee. He's like, yeah, for gosh, pwn Don, I don't know what would happen there. Look like go ahead.
They're literally skull and bones, Yale, Harvard, right? I mean, they are the elite of the elite. The elite.
Yeah, he went to Oxford.
Exactly. Just look at their bios and then watch them on TV. They play dummies on TV because they're liars, right? They know what they're doing, though. And what they're doing is marching towards fascism, authoritarianism, to ram through an incredibly unpopular agenda. And what we've always known, besides that, you never back down to a bully, ever. That's what gives bullies their strength. We've also known that the things that we fight for are incredibly popular. The people love Social Security. The people do not want automatic weapons of war flooding the streets. We know that the people are on our sides, and that fear of the wolf just makes the wolf bigger. And so we need to get in there and aggressively get our message out, which I will say, you were giving me quite a good amount of puff to introduce me. But Cliff, the thing that you and I also really understood, and your vision on it, I think what you can see right now, what you're building, what you've built, is that we need our own channels as well. We need our own ability to talk to the people, because the corporate media is not going to allow us to bring this aggressive truth telling, because they have, their bosses are whoever are showing the advertisements in between the segments that you're watching. And that's who
they just want
for.
the clicks and the revenue, and if you're someone like Bezos, I mean, I don't want to get into my where I'm so far left at this point. I mean, if it even is so far left, it may be so far common sense. But the number of monopolies I would rip into pieces in this country, I couldn't name for you if we had an hour on this show right now. I would tear Amazon to shreds. And of course, that's why Bezos is doing what he's doing. He should have no right to own a newspaper if he's going to make decisions based on his other businesses. We've let this go since Reagan get out of hand. And I mean, the monopolization of our economy, which, by the way, also leads to crappier wages, worse working conditions, richer CEOs at the top who ignore the rest of us, oligarchic billionaires who buy our political process, a despoiled environment. We can go on and all the negative ways that monopolies, because of lack of competition, harm us.
Absolutely.
And this is part of it. But I think what Alex, and I'll kick it back to you, I see the reason why I think we're going to win this election solidly. I think if everybody turns out and does their part, if everybody knocks on doors and calls whatever, I think I've looked at the turnout operations, I've looked at the numbers, I've looked at, what's been going on like wildfire in the Puerto Rican community. It's happened in other communities too, turning against Trump. But when we look to the future, Kamala Harris winning and even our winning in Congress isn't enough, right? We're so out of whack, out of balance. Our judiciary, our media, our institutions like that. And I think, and this is where I'll kick it back to you, I think it may take a little while because it's not going to just go like that. But I do think this cycle, this may be where the mainstream media finally jumped the shark, and I think they just committed suicide. 12% or something of post subscribers digitally have unsubscribed. And creators like me, folks like you may not have this, but you've got a large email list you communicate with. You know how to communicate directly with folks too. We Act Radio, something that you've done a lot more than I did, but back in the day I was somewhat involved with. Poo Picker Upper. Sorry, I have to call this out. 3 memberships, thank you very much. Early voting in Ohio. Women 50% to 44% for men. Love it. Because Sherrod, we need Sherrod, and I want this is going to be a swing state again. We've talked about it. But in any case, I think the ones that are owned by, let's say, a foundation like the Philly Inquirer, that's what I've been saying to everybody. Go to the folks like me and Alex, join our channels, read Substacks, do all that stuff. Get your information from people who actually tell the truth, but tell the truth in a way where you don't take shit from anybody. Okay, yes. And define the narrative and all, but. Philly Inquirer, I'll still call out the ones that are good, that have done the right thing. They're the only ones that called for Trump to drop out after the first debate against Biden, not Biden, because Trump was a serial liar, as they put it. There's a few others. The Cleveland Plain Dealer or Chris Quinn said, we're covering this race as it is, which means one candidate has said they will not accept the results and try to overthrow the last results, and they've stuck to it at the Plain Dealer covering. There are some that are, but New York Times, Washington Post, all these guys, I think they've killed themselves because so many people are unsubscribing. You don't need them. That model is dead. That fake balanced, whatever, does not work in our times. I don't think it ever was a good model. The British don't have it. They've got newspapers that are partisan. I just don't think, I think a lot of people that I know are going to give up reading those outlets until they fall apart. But you go ahead.
I have an enormous amount of respect for journalists, and there are great journalists at WAPO, at New York Times, and Wall Street Journal, Financial Times, others. I find the journalists, I follow them. What I think the problem is that the outlets are corrupt, and there needs to be new models that allow hard journalism, while also not allowing, the richest people in the world to just wield them for influence. But I also will note, it's not new. That's how newspapers used to be as well. It used to just be oligarchic. Hearst started wars
You're right.
with his newspapers. So it's not like it's sort of there's nothing new under the sun. But I think, and
the corporations that went after, what was it, Walter Winchell for attacking the Nazis because they didn't want to lose business, and they were a little, you're very much correct in that assessment. I just think in this age with there's nobody that could compete effectively with them back then. And in this age of where you have the tools at your hands to compete, I agree with you. There are a bunch of individual journalists at those publications I love. What I think some of them should band together and start a couple super Substacks, name them, turn them into publications, and have editors. I think they could do terrifically well, because I think a lot of us would subscribe and pay them over. I will not pay the Washington Post or the New York Times my money.
Yeah,
people can say that. I feel. Go ahead.
I'll say just in terms of how it also has been. If you look at Montana, the history of Montana, when Anaconda, the mining company, was basically just destroying the state. They just ripped it to shreds, just sucked all of the ore out and despoiled the environment. And in order to do it, they just bought the whole state. Newspapers were owned by Anaconda, politicians, Senate, right? The whole thing was just a company state. And what happens is the people fought back and were like, get out of here. Because when it becomes so obvious that you're being lied to for an agenda, like when it's become so obvious that Bezos puts his thumb on the scale and 10% of your subscribers leave, like the all of the archetypal stories, Wizard of Oz, there's the man behind the curtain. There is no great.
They're fighting against the big elite man behind the curtain, all the regular folks. Yes.
But they're also just people. And so they'll get beaten when the people raise our voices together. And I think to go back to what you and the other hosts were talking about.
Tony,
yeah. If you look at Rick Scott having to apologize in Florida, that's the most important thing. So like the polling, we're in the chute now. So polling is going to be very, very, there's too much noise for the signal. But we're going to have to rely, as you said, you look at the professionalism of the turnout operation. There's a lot of indicators, but one indicator is if you are backpedaling on Twitter, being like, I'm sorry, that joke about Puerto Rico being a garbage
and dumping 1.5 million.
You've got problems. Because I'll say this just to talk about Florida for a second. I think everyone remembers this, but after Maria, there were about 1,000 people, U.S. citizens, right? The people on the island of Puerto Rico are U.S. citizens. They can move freely from Puerto Rico to the continental United States. 1,000 a day were moving after Maria to Florida, right in Orlando. And it's an enormous Puerto Rican population. There are enormous Puerto Rican populations all over this country, 500,000 in Pennsylvania.
Yep. That's huge. 100,000 in Georgia could be a difference maker, right?
And I don't know if you know this, Cliff, because we're all busy, but do you know I was literally on the island of Puerto Rico opening a Social Security office with Commissioner Martin O'Malley on Friday? Like I was there. I
did not know that. It surprises me not at all knowing you, but I did not know that.
But let me set this up because you can appreciate it. Think of the counterpoint of that. I've been working on it with a state senator on the island for 11 months, and it took activism. We had to push. A private landlord had closed, evicted the Social Security Administration from their office in San Juan, the population center on the island. And the people of Puerto Rico asked us, they were like, hey, we need this. And we raised our voices together for 11 months. We pushed. But you know what? The Biden-Harris administration listened. Commissioner O'Malley in March, we convened a forum on the island. He zoomed in and we had all these people line up, talk about the unequal treatment that the U.S. citizens were facing. We were talking at him. His job was to listen. And he did listen. Yep. That was in March. They were telling us it would take years, maybe 5 years to get.
But that's the thing is sometimes activism takes a while. It's not overnight. And you guys stuck with it.
5 years. We're like, nah. So from March until last Friday, and they just reopened the office on Friday, which is in months instead of years.
Well, that was the point I was trying to make. Is not that you should wait 5 years. It's just the opposite. It's that a lot of people would have said, not maybe a lot of people, but some of our weaker brethren in the past might have said, oh, well, they're saying it's 5 years. I guess there's not much we can do. Let's just give up.
What are you going to do?
And you said, you were like, again, we use it where we have to. Fuck you. Not 5 years, 5 months. Let's get it done.
And you know what? Commissioner O'Malley, Martin O'Malley, who was appointed by the Biden-Harris administration, confirmed by the Senate, he listened. He went down there himself to reopen the office on Friday. And Cliff, no one knew that, Donald Trump's little funny boy was going to call Puerto Rico a floating garbage island 2 days later. Martin O'Malley wasn't there because he knew it was going to be a news story. He was there because it was the right thing to do, because the Biden-Harris administration listens to the people. They don't always do the right thing, but they are actually listening to the people.
Well, that's the difference, right?
Exactly.
Nobody ever agrees with us 100% of the time. Nobody ever does the right thing 100% of the time. Advanced democracy, advanced governance, where we are, means that you don't look for someone who you're not looking to get married. You're looking to find the person that best represents your values and best gets things done. And obviously, in the past, that's always been Democrats, even when it was Mitt Romney or John McCain. Now, I mean, with crazy pants over there, putting on his garbage suit and driving around in circles, I don't really think. I mean, they're so utterly
now, right? He looks bad. Like
he looks terrible. I have to believe that
way worse than it's ever been. He was as orange as his vest, and he could barely climb into the garbage truck.
He was an Oompa Loompa. I mean, he looked ridiculous. As Tony was pointing out, they're campaigning in New Mexico. I don't know why. The New York thing, I was near Madison Square Garden, did a video from there the next day, and I would tell you that was about one thing and one thing only. It was symbolism. It was recreating 1939 and giving the message to stand back and stand by because he wants to incite violence. They made up the laughable excuse that New York's a swing state. It had nothing to do. It was all about the symbolism. And just let you know where we are. I have been very critical of, about not doing the right thing. I mean, I think Biden's worst mistake by a lot was Merrick Garland. And I've been incredibly critical. And that's the only thing that worries me at all. I'm hoping that DOJ and DHS is on this, because we've already seen people acting out at polling sites. It's only going to get worse on election day when these guys want to target certain polling sites. God, I hope they have a plan and they're ready to go in protecting that. Because to me, everybody gets out and votes, and that's why as many people as possible should vote early. But if everybody gets out and votes in some manner or another, I think we're going to win this. And I don't even think it's going to be that close. It's just how many votes can they destroy? How many people can they stop from voting? All of that. That's what this comes down to.
And there are, the structural issues that are wielded against Democrats winning are big, like the Republicans are. This is why I said not stupid, or like at the beginning, because I just want your listeners to, I think it's a trap that some people fall into, that to think that Mitch McConnell is not the savviest player that has played the game, there are some who are terrible, but also they've got armies of lawyers out there, right? We've got Mark Elias and so many amazing people, but they've got armies of lawyers. Most of whom we don't know their names because they work for the faceless billionaires whose names
there's one I know. I know Cleta Mitchell. She's out there. I've met her before. She's nice.
But what it is that, you only know the names of 3 or 4 billionaires, right? Like off the top of your head, that you picture Elon Musk being so silly, on jumping on the stage. He's trying to create that
Tom Cruise Today Show moment.
Yeah. But they're doing that on purpose. But it's like, the dude who behind Uline. There are literally sinister forces.
I know. I made a big series of videos about him because he came into this state, from outside. He lives in Illinois, and he's got a big home in Wisconsin, and is there too, and I'm sure other places. But he came in here and spent heavily to try to defeat us on our pro-choice initiative. Told him to get the fuck out of my state, and thankfully, I made a video about it. I'm sure he didn't listen or see it, but I wanted to make my point about and let people know that there was that because they're always talking about outside money, that there was outside money coming into our state trying to corrupt our process, and thankfully they failed. And I'm sure he's doing the same thing right now with because you talk about their smarts. I probably was talking more about their EQ than their IQ.
Yeah,
They are very they don't know how to get along with anybody for the most part. They do know how to get some of their stuff done. And the thing is, as much as the smarts are any or more, is they're cruel, lack any empathy, and they're relentless. And so that's how you get them taking over state Supreme Courts and taking over the appointed courts like the U.S. Supreme Court. They find the levers of power in states and they do this stuff. And now, if we ungerrymander, that's another way. They've just, as you said, tilted democracy. We overwhelmingly favor certain policies. I could name for you 5 different policies right now off the top of my head that over 80% of Americans support, and we can't get anywhere near, right? Like your background checks, your family medical leave, right? We can't even get near them because of the filibuster, something that does not exist in the Constitution, was a mistake of history, and, Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema betrayed us on. And if we can hold the Senate, if we can hold Tester, that's the one I worry the most about. If we can hold that, we wouldn't even need to win any of the others. But
so I spent a week doing a 1,900-mile tour across Montana, Cliff, doing 7 events in 5 days. It was a marathon, and
I bet
it was a lot. It was beautiful. State is enormous, and I went everywhere. I talked to an enormous amount of, primarily because it's Social Security works, I speak with older folks talking about Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, prescription drug prices, what's on the actual ballot. And again and again and again, people were like, everything you're saying, I agree with. The billionaire should pay the same rate as the rest of us. We should expand Social Security. We should lower drug prices. But I'm not totally sure who's doing what, because I see these ads where the Republican, Tim Sheehy, is saying he's the guy who's doing Social Security, and he's openly lying about Tester.
Right.
And I don't want people to lose the knowledge that that's the only way these guys win, is they lie. Right. Donald Trump is sending mailers all throughout the Midwest saying that he's the Social Security guy. I got arrested in the budget committee by Donald Trump's supported House Republican who runs that committee. He endorsed this guy. This is his guy, Jody Arrington. I was arrested for having the audacity to say, don't cut Social Security. He gavelled me into handcuffs because his only plan is to cut Social Security. Donald Trump knows that.
And authoritarianism and bullying is the only thing they know. They can't win an honest debate. Thank you, I'm a Diva, for the super chat. They can't win any honest debate. They're on the wrong side of every issue. Again, that's where the fascism comes in. It's about the intimidation. We're going to arrest you. We're going to beat you up. We're going to throw you, we're going to do all these things to you because they can't win when it's votes. I still think
they're going to lie. Importantly,
they're going to lie. And that I've talked about on this, and I'm going to talk about forever. And I don't care which people to the left of me in the Democratic Party are scream and yell First Amendment. Germany, Canada, United Kingdom, there are many countries out there that have freedom of speech, but have found a way to balance policing hate speech and policing mass disinformation that gets people killed, and saying that those things are not equal to the truth. We have taken an extreme position in this country, as extreme as the Second Amendment position taken. That's ludicrous because there's no individual right to a gun anywhere in the Constitution. And we are saying it is okay for people to incite violence, to convince somebody to walk into a temple in Pittsburgh and start shooting, to convince people to walk into a Walmart in El Paso and start shooting, to go up to a black supermarket in Buffalo and start shooting, and to do all these things. And we have allowed people to spread that misinformation, not to mention the God knows how many people who died from lack of vaccines. And I'm sorry, we are good. The social media, it's too easy to be anonymous. It's too easy to hack the way Putin does. We are going to have to grapple with this. It's no longer some crazy person on the corner yelling, the world's going to end tomorrow, who may have 50 people hear them. It's people that know how to mass manipulate through social media, millions. And disinformation is if people the democracy is based on simple post-enlightenment principles. Give people the truth, give them logically what the sides are. And it never was going to work out that perfectly, obviously. But give, and they'll vote in their best interest. Obviously, people vote based on anger, based on this, based on, but most of us, if we have the correct information, do tend to do something at least relatively good. But they don't, because you know all sorts of people, and I know all sorts of people that think Hillary had a slave ring in a basement in a pizza parlor, and think Joe Biden showered. I got that from somebody I was arguing with. Joe Biden showered with his niece and whatever. I mean, the stuff that they just make up. Grizz Girl, Montana needs tester. Thank you, by the way, for the super chat. But I mean, that's the thing. They get away with it, and I don't need all your.
That's why it's so important to do things like the face-to-face organizing, not to just pat myself on the back, but I will for that Montana trip. That was arduous. I also went to Ohio multiple times, all over Ohio. So you can tell me. And I went to Lima, Ohio. So I was deep in Ohio.
I know where Lima is.
I went to Youngstown. I went all over talking to primarily UAW retirees who have more political education because of their union. But still, there's so much misinformation. But that Senate.
Well, that's why they've attacked unions, because those are other institutions. Any institution that can get the truth to people, the right has targeted, right? Planned Parenthood about, when it has to come with maternal health and the rest, they've attacked unions because it comes with workers getting honest information about wages and benefits and this kind of thing. And they have systematically, and that's where you're pointing about them being smart, evil, cruel, lacking any empathy, stupid socially, stupid when it comes to common sense, but when it comes to their right-wing evil, they have at least.
I don't know what I was thinking maybe we were going to talk to a ton of policy. And I love doing that too, Cliff, but you're a bit of a philosopher. So I didn't forget that. But I
can't help it. I'm always thinking about broader, my background. I can't.
It's philosophy, but also an understanding, because lack of empathy is, the people who study authoritarianism, fascism, and how it happens. Lack of empathy is what is the prime warning light. People who don't have empathy are willing to kill, hurt other people for personal gain, and they can. People can fall in line behind them because of greed, because of fear, because there's a bunch of different reasons. But that lack of empathy. But here's the part that I think is
careerism, being paid off,
all of it. But here's the part that I think is not as well understood, but is so important, is the role of institutions. They don't have to be that smart. They can be idiots. They can come right out of the frat boy elite, right? They're in the right frats at Yale because their daddy was in the right frat, right? I mean, like generations of fail sons, people who literally can do nothing except wear boat shoes and drink beers, but they get to
describe Josh Hawley's time at Yale, exactly. I believe.
They are then put into these chairs with a directive. They don't have to think it up. The structure, the institution has been built over generations.
Yes.
For white supremacy, for domination by the elite, for making sure that the working people don't come together. And these elite, they can be fail sons. Some of them are really smart, but the institution, they don't have to build it from the ground up. They just sit in the chair.
I always like to point to people to 1 year, and there are other years because there's plenty of this kind of garbage they built. And now I'm forgetting what the third one was. But in 1973, with Adolf Cohr's money, and I'm sorry, if you're still naming your kids Adolf at that point, you're kind of giving the game away just a bit, right? Maybe you also, like Trump, thought Hitler did some good things, and admired him somewhat. But damn it, I wish I could think of the third one. But two institutions founded that year: the Heritage Foundation and ALEC. Two of the most destructive. ALEC is the one that goes to the state legislatures and puts together policies they should pass and buys them off with contributions, whatever. And the Heritage Foundation, you're probably more familiar with. Federal, they were once theoretically at least somewhat of a think tank, even if a right-wing one, and morphed into an entirely a completely political operation. And again, that's when I hate the corporate media often, because politics is the only area where mainstream media actually tries to play dumber than they are about things. Like, they don't try to say, I don't know what a sacrifice bunt is if they're covering baseball. And they don't say, I don't understand what gravity is if they're taking, if they're talking about science. But they will pretend they don't know what the Heritage Foundation really is. It's a complete PR and political operation now.
It's amazing. It's amazing to watch the media do their song and dance, because by amazing, I mean it makes me furious, because the Heritage Foundation, the Trump people will come on and they'll look right in the camera and they'll be like, we don't know anything about Project 2025. And then the media is like, hey, he just said he doesn't know anything about Project 2025. And you're like, he was winking at the camera the whole time. Like, the senators, the justices also said they weren't going to overturn Roe v. Wade. And the credulous media were all like, oh, well, they said it. And you're like, they have been working to do the same thing for decades.
And it. That's the thing is these members of the media. It's not even. It's
and this. They just media. They tell you afterwards once the cameras are off and you're back in the green room. You know this, Cliff. That personalities and everything. They know that they're like, oh wow, I wish I could tell the this or that. Yep. And you're like, it's your fucking job, man.
That's what, I wish I could say that. I'm like, what do you think you're in the First Amendment for? Do you think you're in there so you can both sides and say to people, this is what I try to tell people again and again, because they say to me, and especially friends of mine, I've lived abroad twice from other countries, maybe even people here, how can Donald Trump be so close? And I say again and again, there are other reasons for it. Obviously, you start off with a system where someone who can have a minority of support and states they're gerrymandered and vote suppression, and all that sort of stuff. But it is so squarely on, we've allowed a vast right propaganda network to grow and hide behind media. Everybody just pretends in the mainstream media that it's actually media and not just propaganda. And then there's just the mainstream media in general, who mostly, they're exceptions, right? I brought up Philadelphia Inquirer, Will Bunch, one of the best columnists in the world. Rex Hubke at USA Today that just came out and will not endorse. Rex Hubke is terrific. A good friend of mine. I love him. It's not to say there aren't any good folks in the mainstream media. There absolutely are. And you pointed that out earlier. But overall, these organizations where they push you into these little sort of, for careerism, you want the corner office, you want that promotion, you want the whatever, they don't have to, anybody's ever worked, been in a workplace before, knows that often you don't need your boss to tell you what they want. You know what their biases are. You know what their preferences are. You know what they're pushing for. You know where they kind of scold you when you step out of line. And so these weak careerists go along with this, play dumb. And again, the whole point of the First Amendment and a free press is that, again, that theory, if we know the truth, we will vote in a common sense way. But so many people don't, and then you throw in lack of education, because of course we've cut funds from public schools. You throw in the fact that, lack of benefits, because these CEOs have gotten greedier. So now you're somebody, pick whoever you want, of whatever race, gender, whatever, but you're someone who's taking a bus an hour and a half each way to work every day, to work a 10-hour or 11-hour day, coming home, and you have to work Saturdays maybe too, because you need a second job. You're coming home, you've got 3 kids, you're trying to take care of them, you're trying to make sure everybody's okay, taken care of, that they've got clean clothes because they're young kids, that they've eaten their meals and whatever. What time do you have to sit down and read newspapers or watch them? You don't. So what you're relying on are headlines and chyrons. And when the New York Times, has headlines, just the top half of a newspaper filled with Hillary email stories, that fucking garbage that was, that sent the message to people that this is the most important thing. But they don't have that when a guy is, essentially is in Putin's pocket. In fact, I think it was Eric Lichtblau, wrote an article, no connection seen between Trump and Russia, because McGonigal, the White House, bought off by Russia, and that FBI office in New York gave them that. And so a week before the election, they're putting that crap out there, and they're putting this stuff about Hillary. And gee, I wonder why, what I'm saying is, any society you go to, a fascist buffoon, because authoritarian leaders, everybody's like, oh, buffoon. Hitler was a buffoon. Idi Amin, a complete buffoon. The problem is that these buffoons when they're not called out properly, when most people don't get the true information of what buffoons they are and how dangerous their plans are and how incompetent they are and all of the rest, they don't know any better. And maybe the person's a little charismatic or whatever. So would I tell you that in almost any society, you're going to find 30 to 35% who would support a fascist or the, whatever you want to call Stalinism? I mean, it's all essentially authoritarianism. Yes, you'll find 35% that want somebody to protect them and, this and that. But it's what drives me nuts. It's when Trump, who seems to be stuck at about 46, 47%, it's that extra 10 or 11%. Some of those types of folks I know, business conservatives, people like that, or people that are working hard every day and don't have time to, and they don't pay close attention. And all they know is what they see, in Chiron's places while they're at the gym or things like, that. And in the end, they don't think Trump's so bad because he's been sane-washed, because he talks about Arnold Palmer's dick. And they're like, the New York Times writes it up as he had some colorful stories about Arnold Palmer. No, he doesn't. He talked about the man's penis when he was in the shower. Tell people what this crazy person said. I will
also say that it's not to excuse, but I got a chance to do a talk with a professor who studies authoritarianism, and it was like really fun to listen. This was on Project 2025.
Timothy Schneider, Ruth Ben-Ghiat, I'm guessing. Anybody I know?
Give me a second. And so the thing that he was pointing out that was so, I think, important was the preemptive obedience that people have. So that fascist overtones and the propaganda power, like we are hit with an enormous number. I do this in my messaging work all the time to talk about why people believe Social Security is going bankrupt when it literally can't go bankrupt, but they think it's going bankrupt because they're told it's going bankrupt all the time.
It's a totally separate fund.
Why do people buy razors with 5 blades instead of 4 blades? 4 blades was fine last year. 5 blades.
5 is better. It makes you tougher, man.
And so it's just this, it's inundated with propaganda. But one of the things that fascist propaganda or authoritarian propaganda can actually do is it doesn't have to convince some percentage of people. It actually scares some percentage of people into preemptively being like, oh, well, this guy's definitely going to win. And if he doesn't win, he's going to take over the country in a fascist, coup. And so I'm going to show obedience. I've seen the movies.
Like USA Today or the Washington Post, obedience ahead of time. And other folks, you're right. And to me, that's some of the existence of your Rasmussens and Trafalgars and these fake polls. It's like the perfect setup. They skew everything to the right. So people think that we're in a different situation than we're in. It scares people, some people, into being obedient, gives some of their people false confidence.
And
Go
Cliff,
ahead.
if you look at and I'll get his name in the paper because it is fascinating. But remember, like Donald Trump didn't just he hasn't been saying the enemy within for a while. He hasn't been saying use the military against the enemy within and put them in camps. Yep. It's actually right now where he's turning up because the anxiety is at a fever pitch. So now is when you can really crank the fear up and create obedience through fear. That's why he's saying the biggest threat are the enemy within.
And they always
the military against the enemy within. It's to scare people into not voting or voting for him or whatever it is. But that's what I said, a little bit too.
Well, I have to leave. Soon we'll have to go to pick up kids. But I have to say quickly, because Paul Young, who said this in here, and I'm responding here, that you said America is a center-right country. It is absolutely not. Depending upon your definition of center-right, again, if you want to say over 80% of people supporting increasing Social Security is center-right, we're center-right. If you want to say over 80% of people supporting increasing Medicare is center-right, we're center-right. If you want to say over 80% of people supporting red flag laws, universal background checks, supporting a ban on assault rifles, a 10-bullet limit to magazines, then we're center-right. If you want to say people supporting full sick leave, family and medical leave as a requirement, paid family and medical leave, over 80%, yes. If you want to call that center right, we're center right. If you want to call, I think, at this point, abortion may only be at 75% or something. Sorry. If you want to say that 75% of being pro-choice is center right, we're center right. And I can go on and on. I mean, I'm sorry, but no, we're not center right by any right-wing definition of it. I guess everything is in what you consider to be center right. But I know what the positions are that this country supports. And mostly they're ones I support as somebody, and I consider myself to be either liberal or center left or whatever. But I'll tell you this before I go, and never have I gotten, as I was telling you about monopolies before, like I'm on board with AOC. Any money, over $10 million should be 70%. Fuck it, I want it to be 80%. I'm on board with Elizabeth Warren with 3%. I think she say 2% of over 50 million. If you're a billionaire, should be a wealth tax. Forget it. I want it to be like 10%. I want to crush these oligarchs. I want to crush these monopolies. If you are making 10 million, 20 million, you're doing great. You can afford to give up a lot of it. And we can go back to the age we were in from the 30s to the 70s, where granted, racially, women's rights, other rights, we were terrible, but economically, we were the best we've ever been in this country, created the largest middle class in the history of the world. And that's because people could afford to have one job, have great benefits, have vacations, have Social Security, and all of this stuff going for them. And we've completely destroyed that system so that we are where we are now. Sorry, that was a rant I needed to go off on. But I respect you, Paul. I don't think you came in bad faith. I'm just saying, So last thing before I have to go, because I have to get this from you, and Alex, I forgot, I don't think I ever forgot how much I like you, but I forgot how much I enjoy talking about this stuff on air, off air. We could frickin' talk to the end of time.
We could.
What's your feeling? I hope you have the same positive feeling me and Tony have, and don't depress people. What is your feeling in general about where this election is headed? Be it, Senate races, presidential is most important for obvious reasons, but House, everything else.
House looks the best, and then I think the White House, and then the Senate. And I think fear of the wolf makes the wolf look bigger, and don't believe their messaging. It is a fist fight to the finish line politically, and so you just can't take your foot off the gas in any place. We can't be afraid, and we can't be arrogant. We have to be organized, and we have to be methodical. And that's what I've seen from our side. So that's what gives me confidence, being organized.
All of us have to do it. All of us. I mean, Alex has all these, big appearances, TV, this, that, whatever. He's knocking on doors, right? I may host this show. I may have a big email list where I raise money for folks and whatever. Like, yes. And it was not a good choice in the end. I did do a bucket list thing with my son and decided to take a Monday night and go to see the Yankees play the Dodgers. And, that was ugly. But in the World Series. But I will say this. I also then went by Madison Square Garden because I couldn't go on that trip and not go and create content for people and show them and make a point about these guys. None of us are too good for it. None of us are too good for calls, for talking to our relatives, or talking to friends, peer groups are some of the best ways to talk to folks about this if they're still undecided. And first, I don't get it, but okay. You talk to them about that. Donate if you can afford it. Everything you can do. Because again, run through the finish line. But I've often compared it to, my 14-year-old, just turned 15, who plays soccer. When he comes off the field, his face is red. He looks like he's about to fall over. He may even have a little blood on one of his legs, like whatever, because he plays his heart out and then he's done. That's democracy. That we have to do that for democracy. He does it for a soccer game. We should all on Tuesday, when we can't do anything else, know that we did every single thing. We left it all on the field. That there was nothing. And for me, some nights that means if I'm up till 2 or 3 in the morning getting bad sleep, I don't care. I haven't been able to get to the gym as much. I haven't been able to, that's life. The election will be over. The good guys will win. I can get back to that stuff. But every single thing you can do. Because I will remind people, as I say goodbye, I say thank you to Alex. Alex Lawson, head of Social Security Works. We Act Radio. His resume is so long. You should find him. You should follow him. A-Law something on Twitter.
A-Law 202.
Follow him on Twitter. Is there any other places you want them to find you?
Yeah, Social Security Works on Facebook is actually just a really great resource. We have great stuff. And socialsecurityworks.org is our organization.
Check it out. Thank you all so much for being here. I'm gonna have to leave. Can't hang out and answer comments this time. I'm sorry, guys, because I got already late to pick up my kids. But what I will say as a closing line, as I've been saying, which is, remember, guys, MAGA is a pandemic right now. We know they hate this, are the vaccination. Let's go take care of things. Let's show up and let's kick their asses on Tuesday. Thanks, Alex, for being here. Thank you, everybody else, for being here. You're awesome, and have an awesome day. Take care.